Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Casey Porter here, joined by Austin Brubaker, having to go on a little bit early. Austin, Oklahoma State's taking on Kansas tonight. If you want to watch that big matchup, it will be on ESPN. Last night we had to go on early for the same reason. Oklahoma State took on BYU and got a big win. So I'm hoping that we have the exact same thing happening again tonight. But how the heck are you, Austin?
Doing good, Casey. It sounds like you've been on a lot of Oklahoma State type of adventures over the past week and plus. Talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about your experiences and what you've been able to focus on over the past week.
Yeah, I covered Oklahoma State baseball at Globe Life. They played Arkansas, OU, and then Vanderbilt didn't play good on Friday and Saturday. Run ruled Vandy on Sunday. The softball team was in Clearwater, Florida. They played LSU and UCLA and Texas A&M. And Georgia and Duke, and that was a big weekend. Wrestling had Virginia Tech, which that Virginia Tech's number 7, OSU's number 2. They went and got a big road victory there. They have Iowa this weekend, which is a huge duel. So wrestling was big. Basketball, the girls had a game on Saturday and Monday, and then the boys had a home game on Saturday as well. So I have been totally swamped with Oklahoma State stuff, trying to get all of my Oklahoma State fix in while all these sports are going on at the same time, right before the Dodgers start their games on Saturday, which I cannot wait.
Yeah, Dodgers spring training games are starting this Saturday. They're going to be going on the road against the Angels. Going to be a really fun matchup. And then we're going to start to see baseball now for hopefully until the beginning parts of November, end of October type of time period. Going to be seeing a lot of Dodger baseball coming up.
It absolutely is going to be a blast. And so the first item that I wanted to get into, Santiago Espinal. On the surface, to me, this looks like a guy that's going to take some innings and some at-bats away from Alex Freeland. I know you have the opinion that he's going to take a specific role. So convince me that he's not going to take away at-bats from Alex Freeland and or Ha-Seong Kim.
Okay, so let's take a little bit of an overview of where the roster is at right now on the position player side, because I think this is important to look at the roster and important to look at particular roles where players can help fill into the roster to see why, as I talked about on the previous show, I'm actually projecting somebody like a Santiago Espinal to actually make the opening day roster for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Let's break it down in just a second before everybody freaks out about that. The starting position players that are healthy. If we're talking about players that are projected to make the opening day roster for the Dodgers, it's Ohtani, it's Smith, it's Betts, it's Freeman, it's Muncy, it's Teo, Pages, Tucker. Rushing, Rojas, and Alex Call are my 11 that I have projected to make the opening day roster for the Dodgers. That leaves 2 open spots on the roster. Now, this is really crucial and important because it has been announced that Tommy Edman is going to miss opening day. I don't think this is a massive shock to Los Angeles Dodgers fans, but this is a kind of a little bit of a critical type of role because he's able to fill in a lot of different positions on this club. He also is somebody that can go ahead and hit against left-handed pitchers. Tommy Edman is going to be out for opening day. That leaves 2 kind of opening spots. And if you're looking at the starting lineup for the Dodgers, that creates an opening at second base, which it is my belief that during spring training, and if you're talking about storylines to be able to watch, this is towards the top of the list. I believe it is going to be a competition between Ha-Seong Kim and Alex Freeland. And I believe that it is realistic that only one of those guys is going to make the opening day roster. Here's why I say only one of those guys in particular, and this is what I explained on the show on Monday. They both fill in very similar roles to this team. They're both versatile infielders, but they are primarily hitters against right-handed pitching, which is the plus side of the platoon. That's what exactly you were looking for each one of these guys. This doesn't mean that these players can't hit against left-handed pitching, but if the organization wants to be able to set these guys up and put them in positions to be able to have some success, you would take matchups versus right-handed pitching as opposed to left-handed pitching. And if we're looking at this infield, Max Muncy is going to be the third baseman, and he's going to hit against right-handed pitching. You have Mookie Betts every day at shortstop. You have Freddie Freeman every day at first base. There is a likely platoon at the beginning of the season while Tommy Edman is out for either Kim or Freeland, and then a Miguel Rojas. You have Miguel Rojas hitting against lefties. You have the winner of the Kim versus Freeland battle against right-handed pitching. That leaves you, if you choose one of Kim, or Freeland. That leaves you with one open spot on this roster. And this is where you talk about what is going to be best for the organization and what is going to fill in a particular role. Because let's examine, because I think there could be some sort of thought. And if you look at FanGraphs projected rosters right now, they are projecting to have both Alex Freeland and Hae-Sung Kim to make the opening day roster. Here's why I don't think that immediately makes sense. We'll get into a little bit of a side tangent in just a minute. The reason why I don't immediately think that makes a whole lot of sense is because neither Hae-Sung Kim or Alex Freeland is a good platoon option with Max Muncy. Max Muncy, if he's going to play, he's going to hit a lot versus right-handed pitching. Yeah, in fact, he's going to get almost everyday reps, and he's especially going to take the reps against right-handed pitching. Where you would try to fit in and where it doesn't make sense to have Alex Freeland or Hae-Sung Kim to be platoon options is they are the exact same way. They are going to go ahead and hit against right-handed pitching, which means there's not a good platoon advantage to be able to go out and help out a Max Muncy, which if we're talking about this infield, Max Muncy is one of the guys that likely is going to need some rest throughout the year. Does not hit well against lefties or that great against lefties, 81 WRC plus.
Not as well, yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
It definitely not. If you compare the difference between him versus righties and him versus lefties, it's like a 144 versus an 81. Yeah. It's a massive gap between the two. And Hae-Sung Kim or Alex Freeland does not pair well with that. That is where the Dodgers earlier in this offseason decided to try to get Andy Ibanez as part of this organization, someone who can play third base and has a history of hitting well versus left-handed pitching. While Santiago Espinal is not the same player that Andy Ibanez is, or at least hasn't performed quite as well, you look at last year, 75 games at the third base. Can also play a little bit of second base, can play all around a little bit, but graded out pretty well defensively last year at the third base position, which means somebody that can play third base pretty well, and a career 107 WRC plus versus left-handed pitching. If you're talking about early in the season and just during the time period when Tommy Edman is going to be out, if you're talking about, we'll have Alex Freeland, let's say Kim wins the opening day second base position. We'll have Alex Freeland sit on the bench in Los Angeles and just have him sit there and not really do a whole lot. Maybe fit in one game a week, or we can go ahead and continue with some of his development, perhaps work on some of the swing decisions, cut down on some of the swing and miss, and do a stopgap type of option like Santiago Espinal. I think they go towards the stopgap option because I don't think it is realistic that you can get regular plate appearances for both Kim and Freeland at the MLB level. I think it's one or the other, and I think they want to continue with the development of both of them, which means if they want to continue with the development, they either have to take playing time from an MLB starter or one of those guys has to go down to Oklahoma City.
So the question is, which one? So do you look at it, which one's more Major League ready, plug and play Major League ready, or which one needs more time to develop at the minor league level? I know that kind of sounds the same, but it's not. So the guy that's more Major League ready might have a skill set that the Dodgers can use in a specific role that will make them more productive at the Major League level right now versus a guy that has an overall game that maybe is a little bit better but has a couple things that still need to be tweaked. So if I were to ask you, which one do you think has the more Major League ready tool set, skill set at this second versus which one do you think could benefit the most from minor league at bats? How would you evaluate that?
Yeah, so I'm assuming you're turning the page and going towards the Kim versus Freeland type of debate. Just to make sure I'm on the same page.
This is shaping up to Kim versus Freeland at second base. One of them staying, one of them's going down, and Espinal is going to be that utility guy, the guy that gets the 2 or 3 games a week at the Major League level. That's what this is looking like.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's necessarily – I think it could be 1 to 2 games a week for Espinal. I think what the organization with Espinal, what they would be looking for is hoping Tommy Edman would be back. Let's say that he misses a month of the season. I have no idea what the time frame for Tommy Edman is, but if you're talking about a month, you're talking about 20 plate appearances for Santiago Espinal, maybe 25 plate appearances for him during that month to give some rest for Max Muncy. I think that's all what the organization is looking for. When we're turning the page, because the real battle that's going to be happening for spring training, I think it is Kim versus Alex Freeland for that everyday type of second base position. I think what you had mentioned is, what do you want to look at with each one of these guys? Do you want to base it off of what they did last year, the actual results? If it is based off of actual results, Ha-Seong Kim has a better advantage than what Alex Freeland, because he had stretches where he was able to utilize his skill sets in really good ways. His speed is undeniable, and that allows him to take advantage of certain situations. Early in the season, he was incredibly hot for the Los Angeles Dodgers with his bat. Cooled off towards the end. And I think this is when we have this conversation about Kim versus Freeland. The one thing that is most concerning about me with Ha-Seong Kim is his swinging miss. For a player like him, there is too much swinging miss, both at the major league level and at Oklahoma City. It was a near 30% strikeout percentage, even with the Oklahoma City Comets, which with the skill set that Ha-Seong Kim has, he does not, while he's showcased the power, I think he had a home run during the backfields against Yoshi Yamamoto, but he does not project to have the power that should coincide with a swinging miss percentage of 30%. And especially if he's not walking a whole lot, which Ha-Seong Kim is not somebody that, at least throughout his tenure at the over here in America, has been a high walk type of player. He's somebody that should be a more put the ball type in play. So
absolutely, hit ground balls. Your misses need to be ground. Of course, you want to hit line drives. Everybody wants to hit line drives. But, like a guy like Max Muncy, his miss needs to be a fly ball, because that fly ball is going to go out of the park. Will Smith's definitely a line drive hitter. His miss needs to be a fly ball, because he hits the ball so hard. Ha-Seong Kim, again, the goal for everybody is to hit a line drive. That's what everybody's shooting for. That 25-degree line drive that's hit about 110 miles an hour. That's everybody's goal. But different hitters need to have different misses. Max Muncy, Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, even Freddie Freeman, they impact the ball so well. Their misses need to be fly balls, because those turn into home runs. They're maybe not the longest home runs, but they do sometimes turn into home runs, even on a miss. A miss for Ha-Seong Kim, what you're saying is, if he doesn't hit a line drive, that's what we're calling a miss, a non-line drive. It needs to be a miss where he is hitting the ball on the ground and running and putting pressure on the defense. That's what he's not doing right now.
Yeah, what it reminds me of, and this is going down to the minor league level a little bit, it reminded me a little bit of early 2025 Kendall George. Early 2025 Kendall George was swinging and missing too much. If you look at the month of April, it was near a 30% strikeout percentage, which with the skill set that Kendall George has, what he is able to do when he is at his best is take advantage of his speed, be able to utilize his speed to a lot of different ways, to where, man, even if it is hit on the ground, he has the speed to be able to beat that out. Ha-Seong Kim has really good speed to be able to coincide with the skill sets that he has. What he doesn't have the ability to do, or at least hasn't showcased the ability to do, is really impact the baseball. Last year, 2.7 barrel percentage. 28.2% hard hit percentage, well below league average. Smaller sample size, I totally understand and get that, and very well could change this upcoming year. But I think there does need to be some work, or at least there is some concern with the swing miss, because the batted balls that were hit in play and that were counted as hits last year, because it was a very high batting average in balls in play, I don't believe he's going to get that exact same luck this upcoming year.
He was getting lucky early on. He was swinging a magical wand. I mean, he would just lob it out there and he'd get a base hit.
And especially when you look at, it's very difficult to be able to ignore his expected weighted on base average of 251. Yeah, that is like a 250 on base percentage for Ha-Seong Kim. That is well below league average by the profile of the batted ball that he has. I think he's going to outperform that at the major league level because of his speed. But I think there still needs to be some work that needs to be done with the batted ball profile. And this is another aspect with Ha-Seong Kim that perhaps could be one of the reasons why the Dodgers go ahead and start him in Oklahoma City, is because they're having conversations about Kim potentially getting some work, additional work in center field. And the reason why I say that as a reason why he potentially could get a little bit more time in Oklahoma City is because there's not a whole lot of time to be able to work on center field in Los Angeles. And in fact, And this is a question that I ask myself, and especially if Kim's not completely comfortable out there in center field, would you trust an outfield of Teoscar Hernandez in left, Hae-Sung Kim with very little experience in center field, and Kyle Tucker in right field, whose defense has gone down since his Gold Glove season in 2022? I don't know if that's an outfield that you would completely trust just yet in Los Angeles. And it could be one of those things where they want to give him a little bit more rest, that he has more room to be able to grow at the minor league level, because this isn't just he struggled at the major league level. It was he struggled with swing and miss at the minor league level as well. And it could be they want to work on some of these adjustments. That being said, Kim is not out of the equation quite yet. He is still firmly in the conversation to be able to win the second base position, because he's great defensively. He provides a really solid baseline with his defense, with his speed, and with what he was able to do last year, 95 WRC plus, just slightly below league average. If they get another 95 WRC plus out of Kim with the great defense that he's able to provide, that gives the Dodgers a ton of value for their roster. And then you move over to Alex Freeland, the overall numbers for last season were not great for him. It was a WRC plus in the 70s type range, I believe is what it was. Just not really the impact that you were looking for. But it was 97 plate appearances for him. What you want to look at is, and this is something that we've talked a lot about this offseason, is how much more room is there for Alex Freeland to be able to grow at the minor league level if they decide to send him down at the minor league level. And I think this is where he potentially could have a little bit more of an advantage than a Hae-Sung Kim, because there wasn't the same swing and miss at the minor league level as there was at the major league level, which could indicate that his adjustments have to come through major league pitching as opposed to minor league pitching. Strikeout percentage, I think, was around 20%. Let me go ahead and look this up really quick just to be able to confirm the actual numbers in Oklahoma City last year. Yeah, it was 22% in Oklahoma City, jumped up to 36% at the MLB level. We've talked a lot about Alex Freeland being too passive at the plate. His swing percentage is too low. I think those are adjustments that he's going to have to make. The question is if you were to compare both of these guys and they have similar results throughout spring, or they're on fairly equal footing, which do the Dodgers turn to? I think both are really solid defensively. I think they're both are going to provide a lot of value to your organization. Do they like some of the versatility in center field that Kim could potentially be able to provide, especially with Edmund out, which could give a little bit of advantage to Kim if they just want additional insurance in case something happens to Andy Pages, or are they wanting to go potentially with Alex Freeland? I think it's a fascinating battle that's going to be ultimately be determined by what happens with some of the play that gets made in spring training, with some of the things that happen on the backfield. Both guys, I think, are hungry for this job, and it's a great opportunity for the Dodgers to be able to have some young talent to be able to step up in the mix while they're waiting for the return of Tommy Edman.
Yep, I'll say this. It's to me, it's a situation to where you have to put it, to me, you put it like this, okay? The Dodgers are going to be really good. They're going to win 115 games. So You say, hey, are you comfortable with this outfield? Well, no, not necessarily in April, but does it really matter? You're going to win 115 games. I mean, if Hae-Sung Kim going to center field and making some adjustments at the major league level, okay, let's say that he's not exactly perfectly ready for that. So you go from 115 wins to what? 113? I mean, that's kind of the way I'm looking. So the Dodgers have so much margin for error, Austin. Mm-hmm. This is the way I would look at that from a roster constructive perspective, from a not just right now. You know, we talk about managers. Dave Roberts fans get upset because they think he punts games, and maybe he does because he's trying not to lose tomorrow. You know, he wants to say, let's say you're down 5 runs today. Well, then you go down staff. That way you have your best staff ready tomorrow and the next day. You're hedging your bets against the future. So I think the Dodgers have the margin for error to make this decision based on this criteria right here, okay? Don't make it based on certainly don't make it based on what they did last year, because what Hae-Sung Kim did last year was he came to America. What Hae-Sung Kim did last year was he learned the English language. What Hae-Sung Kim did last year is that he got adjusted to how hard the ball was hit in America. What Hae-Sung Kim did last year was he got adjusted to how hard even AAA guys throw the baseball on an everyday basis. So what Hae-Sung Kim did last year, I don't even care because it was such an adjustment period in so many different ways. I'm going to use my scout brain, and I'm going to say, which player, if I were to ask you, do you think has the highest upside that you would want to be the starting second baseman for the future of this franchise 2 to 3 years from now? Which player would that be? Evaluate the skill sets, evaluate the two players, and which one of those two do you think is the future at second base? That's the guy you go with, because I'm going to tie this back into, I don't think it matters right now, because I think you have enough margin for error with what's around these people to where you can put them up there, let them have their struggles, let them make their adjustments, and you put the guy out there. I think the decision gets made based on who you actually think the future is and not who you think is most major league ready at this moment.
Yep, and I think that's a fair way to be able to evaluate it. One point that I want to mention with center field with Kim, one of the things that I want to be able to explore with that, while he would be able to provide potentially some additional insurance for this Dodgers roster, and if you want to make an argument that Kim and Freeland should make the roster at the exact same time, the argument would be more centered around Kim being more of a part-time platoon option for either a Teo or a Pages. Not
He'd
saying
be Tommy Edman, what he'd
time.
be.
He would be filling in some additional roles in there. This is a scenario where Freeland takes the majority of the reps at second base, and Kim is able to fill in maybe a little bit of second base, but additionally in the outfield as well. What this is going to have to be able to take some evaluation at is, what is Kim's defense look like in center field, and how good is that actually going to be? Because that's going to determine how realistic of a possibility is it going to be for Kim to be potentially an outfielder for the Dodgers, or is it something where he's going to need some additional work on that? And if you need some additional work at that, he's not going to get that time at the major league level, because they're going to give the everyday reps to Teo, to Pages, and to Kyle Tucker. And so there would have to be a little bit more of an alternative if that is something that the organization had wanted to explore, to get some outfield versatility for a Ha-Seong Kim. I just don't see the plate appearances or the time at the major league level to be able to get to that. But I think your point is exactly right. I think the organization wants to be able to evaluate these guys. It's not just about who's going to help the Dodgers win an extra game here or there, because I think the Dodgers, at least on paper, are going to win the National League West fairly easily this upcoming year, or at least they have the talent to be able to do so. Talent doesn't win games, but it puts you in good positions to be able to win games. And I think the Dodgers have put themselves in a position where, even if it is a struggle for a Freeland or a Kim, they can burden through some of that struggle and help develop them at the major league level. So what is the long-term outlook for each one of these guys, and how does Freeland, how does Kim fit into the long-term situation? Well, this is a good time to invest plate appearances into one of these guys to see what they can do to help them make the adjustments. And in fact, it can take some time for even a player like a Tommy Edman to potentially come back, because when Tommy Edman comes back, they want him to be versatile and do whatever he possibly can. And they want his ankle to be as healthy as it possibly can be, so he can help if he needs to fill in the outfield, so he can go and move around as much as he can. Take the time to be able to invest the plate appearances and what you can. And I think that's the long-term outlook. How does the organization view each one of these guys? I don't necessarily know. That's going to be fascinating to be able to watch in spring.
Yeah, I'll say this as we button this up. We'll get on to a different topic. If you're evaluating Kim versus Freeland, and then Espinal is on the roster as well, which he's not even on the 40-man yet, so that would be an interesting move there. We'll see if that's the way you go, because you don't think you have enough major league at-bats for both Ha-Seong Kim and Alex Freeland, which, by the way, the great thing about this is both of those young men are going to have the ability to show out in spring training and determine their own fate with this. Okay, so that's going to be the beautiful part of that. But if it does come down to Alex Freeland versus Ha-Seong Kim, I can tell you this. The last thing that would go into the equation for me would be how good of a center fielder is Ha-Seong Kim. That would not even be a part of the consideration, because I want Ha-Seong Kim at the major league level to be the second baseman now, and I want him to be the second baseman in the future, because we already have Tommy Edman in the system, and we're going to be able to be just fine winning games until Tommy Edman gets back. So I think the center field piece yeah, you can throw that in maybe as a tiebreaker or whatever, but to me, it's like the last thing you would consider.
It is something based on some of the reports in camp that Kim is potentially going to get some reps in center field. I think this is in part potentially necessary, depending on the long-term nature of Tommy Edman's injury, only because the Dodgers do not have a ton of backup at the center field position. They have Pages, and they're likely to have Alex Call, who is a worthy wild backup, played 81 games in center field in the 2023 season with really good metrics to be able to back up center field. But that's pretty much it. And if they want to add some additional versatility to Kim, who potentially, I'm not saying this is what he projects, but potentially could project as a little bit more of a utility type piece. It's kind of similar to that Tommy Edman type of vein where he can go ahead and play shortstop. He can play second base. He potentially can play center field. And if he could be really good at all three of those up the middle defensive positions, that provides a ton of value. I don't necessarily how much more added value it does to this team because you already have a Tommy Edman. But if that's a skill set that they want to be able to add to Kim based on what they see him as projecting that going forward, he's not going to be able to develop that if that is something the organization wants to do at the major league level with Teo, with Pages and Tucker already in the mold in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I don't see the point in trying to force center field on Ha-Seong Kim. I understand he can run. He is a very good defender, and I think there's plenty of those fourth outfielder type guys like the Alex Calls, like the Tommy Edmans, that are out there for pretty cheap that the Dodgers can go get. That will always be a better defender in the outfield than Ha-Seong Kim, because Ha-Seong Kim, like we've said, is never going to get the everyday reps out in center field to maximize what he can be defensively. Okay, the next topic I wanted to talk about, it's going to be really fun with Tony Vitello as the manager of San Francisco. This guy plays. I'm very, very, very familiar with Tony Vitello. Oklahoma State's played him several different times. In fact, I think our first game last year was against them. Okay. He plays the victim on every single situation. Everybody in the world's always out to get Tony Vitello, right? He lets his kids, they were kids at Tennessee, he lets them act like complete clowns. I don't mean like even goons. I mean straight up clowns, okay? Now, the reverse side of that, he acts like a clown. And as a matter of fact, his pitching coach is Frank Anderson, who was the head coach at Oklahoma State, who I know very well. I know Frank very, very well. Brett, his son, actually went to Stillwater High School. Brett Anderson pitched in the major leagues for Oakland for several different years. Frank Anderson is a wonderful man. He eventually got fired at Oklahoma State, didn't quite win enough. But I have a massive amount of respect for his pitching coach, Frank Anderson, there at Tennessee. And so I say this saying, I don't have anything against the University of Tennessee, but Tony Vitello acts like a clown, okay? He tries to bully other teams, and then the second the teams fight back, then he wants to get all butthurt about it, and he wants to play the victim. So what happened was he left Tennessee, and then it got reported he was leaving Tennessee, and his assistant coaches found out about it while they were in practice. And so they kind of freaked out. I'm like, hey, dude, the rumors are you're leaving for San Francisco to take the San Francisco job. And he's like, what do I do now? So he's trying to flip that as, well, no, that report wasn't right. Well, yeah, you ended up going to San Francisco. That report was exactly right. Quit playing the victim. So this guy has an edge. He's tough. He tries to be intimidating. His players play with an edge, at least at the college level. He gets his guys to compete at an elite level. If you don't match that edge, they will run you over, at least at the college level, okay? But he's a clown. He plays the victim, and he's going to be the perfect guy to just, whenever the Dodgers play the Giants, just to go, oh, Lee, I don't want to lose to that freaking guy, right? So it's going to be really fun having Tony Vitello as a rival, because I can't stand the guy's style to begin with. That's only going to make it that much more fun for me.
Yep. I'll be honest. I don't watch a whole lot of college baseball, or at least it's just not something that I'm too privy to. So I'm not familiar with the annex of Tony Vitello.
Oh, my God. Go research him. Oh, my God.
Yes, we will have to wait and see what happens on the field with the Dodgers and the Giants. Obviously, huge rivalry, Dodgers and Giants. Yeah, we'll see what happens on the field, and we'll let that speak for itself.
So that intensity, hey, he has elite intensity. I mean, it's intense at all moments to the point to where it's annoying, right? I'm going to be very interested to see how his intensity, the way that he wears his emotions on his sleeves, the way that he uses the media to call people out, the way that he's always pissed about something. He's always playing the victim. He's always whining about something. I'm going to see how that works over a 2-game season over 6 months and with professionals. I'm very curious to see how that works, especially considering that he never played pro ball. So he doesn't have that built-in respect from professional players. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. I'm super excited to see how it works. I think there might be some success early on, but I think it might wear off and wear on some nerves as we go on. Okay, Brusdar Gratterall, Austin. When are the Dodgers going to get Brusdar back?
It's a good question, and this is of serious concern to the Dodgers because it's been reported that Brusdar Gratterall is going to miss opening day. We had heard a little bit of some stuff that earlier during the offseason that Gratterall perhaps could be ready for opening day, and I think that was really exciting is because when Gratterall is healthy and on the mound, and it's a big if because he has not been able to stay healthy, but he's been really solid for the Dodgers. Posted, a 1-something ERA last time he pitched fully for the Dodgers in the season. Just able to have some success, throws a baseball hard, able to get a ton of ground balls. He's not going to be ready to go. He's not going to be ready to go for the start of opening day, and that is disappointing for the Dodgers. This just means that other players are going to have to step up within the Dodgers bullpen, within the Dodgers rotation, because one of the reasons why the Dodgers decided to move off of Anthony Banda, which I think this is relevant to this type of situation because Gratterall's kind of in a little bit of similar shoes as what Banda was, meaning two players can't be optioned down to the minor league level. The Dodgers decided to move off of Anthony Banda in part because some of the lefties that they have, in part because of some of the roster constraints, because they wanted to add in a Ben Rortvedt to try to add some organizational depth, in part because they wanted to avoid some of that roster inflexibility. They decided to move off of him, and that put a little bit of additional pressure to be able to have some of the guys that were in-house to be able to step up. Gratterall's not going to be able to step up and be part of that mix, and that means some of the other arms in this bullpen, particularly some of the optional type of guys, this is going to open up some spots in the bullpen. Currently projected, there are 4 pitchers that are projected to make the Dodgers roster that are not optionable type of guys. It's Diaz, it's Scott, it's Trinan, and it's Vesia. That leaves 4 bullpen spots open for guys to be able to fight for a roster spot. It's guys like a Kasperius, a Dreyer, Gervais, Henriquez, Hurt, Klein, Kopp, Miller, maybe a Robleski if he wants to be a reliever. There's room for 4 of those guys.
I think Robo might take Snell's spot for a while.
He very well could take Snell's spot. And that's why I put him as a little bit of a question mark, because there's also question marks of whether Blake Snell's going to start the season healthy, ready to go.
I know he's not going to. I think that's what I'm saying. I think Robo's going to slide into that spot.
And that could be a fascinating conversation because you also have some of the other starters that could be vying for the Blake Snell type of role. And what exactly do they want the role for be Justin Robles? I'm talking about guys like a River Ryan or a Gavin Stone to be able to fight for the mix. Because, I mean, Gavin Stone was a Los Angeles Dodger and was going to remain a Los Angeles Dodger until he got injured. River Ryan has had this really good rise to the occasion and could be one of the guys they want to throw into the mix. There are other guys on the starting pitching side that could be fighting for that, and what the role they want Justin Robleski to be able to fill is still a question mark. I think it's one of those things where they have to prioritize, or at least try to do what they can with the talent that Robo has. What I would try to do, since he only has 1 option year left, try to be creative about Robo's roles. I don't know if this is a traditional type of starter. I don't know if it's a piggyback starter. I don't know if it's just a plain reliever. I don't know if it's a long relief type of role. But try to get him in a lot of different mix because you can rely upon Robo for innings. I think it's one of the things that the organization should take advantage of and try to preserve the option year while also being able to throw a lot of innings onto Justin Robleski and expect them to be pretty good. But as far as Gratterall is concerned, it's a little bit of a question mark because, I mean, it very much is worrisome because of his past history of dealing with injuries. How much can you actually rely upon Gratterall? I don't know if it's a whole lot.
Yeah. Here's I said this last time. I got asked in the very last show. I think it was I think it was either maybe Chuck or Show, whoever it was, asked me if I'm worried about Gratterall's injury. And I said, absolutely, very much so worried. And here's why, Austin. This is kind of the geeky coach side of why I'm worried. And this actually ended up being the case, okay? And this is where kind of having experience in the game kind of clues you into why you should worry, why you shouldn't, beyond just in front of the curtains. And that is his extension's not very good. He doesn't get down the mound very well. And then he also throws 100. And so what that tells me is if you're not very close to home plate, but yet you're still throwing the ball 100 miles an hour, you're putting a tremendous amount of stress on your shoulder, on your arm, on your elbow. Whereas if you got a guy like and I know this is a bad example because Glasnow's been hurt a lot, but if you have a taller guy that's basically handing the ball to the catcher and he's hitting 98, 99, well, he's able to do that with a much easier delivery, much less effort, which theoretically should be easier on your body. Although, like I said, Tyler Glasnow has kind of been made out of glass to this point. But theoretically, you're closer to home plate when you deliver it, so you don't actually have to throw the ball with as much spin and velocity to get it to actually reach 100 miles an hour. So it just worries me with Brusdar Graterol, his setup with not very good extension, how much he has to use his arm, his shoulder, his elbow to get the ball up to 100 miles an hour. I worry that he'll never quite be the same, even if he is healthy. And I worry if he'll actually be totally healthy. And then if he is, how consistent that will be. I have a lot of worries about Brusdar Graterol.
Yeah, very, very reasonable concerns for him. He has not pitched a whole lot for the Dodgers recently. He is entering into a contract year too. So this is a big year for Graterol and his sake. His last year of team control with the Dodgers, going to be a free agent after this year. You hope for his sake and for the Dodgers' sake that he's able to get a little bit of health in this season and be able to come back. So then that sets him up somewhat well going into his free agency coming up this upcoming year. But it remains a huge question mark of what he's going to be able to contribute for the Dodgers. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I think Robo needs to be a starter. I know it's very tough for the Dodgers, but when you can throw the ball up, I know he doesn't have great extension either, but when you're left-handed, you can throw it up there 100 miles an hour. You have the back foot slider. You have the front to back with the changeup that you added last year. And here's the big one. You are as competitive and you're able to take on the moment as well as Justin Robleski does. And then here's the biggest one. Justin Robleski, well, just listen to Brian Kraft talk, okay? Listen to Josh Holliday on the interview I've had with Josh Holliday, the head coach of Oklahoma State, who coached Justin Robleski in college. The first thing they will tell you about Justin Robleski is that his off-the-field routines are so rigid. He is so dedicated to his nutrition, his diet, his regimen, his workout plan, just his day-to-day functions, that sets up a lot better for a starter than it does a reliever because it takes out all of the guesswork as to when you're going to come in. As a starter, Justin Robleski would be able to say, okay, on game day I do this. He would do it by the minute. The day after game day, I'm going to do this. He'd do it by the minute. He would be able to plan out every second of every day of his career, and that's what's best for Robleski because that's the type of rigid person he is with his regimen. So I think Robo eventually needs to become a starter. As far as Ben Kasparius, when you have a 3,000 RPM slider and a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, it's the Bobby Miller thing, okay? Here's why Kasparius needs to be a reliever. Yes, he could have 5 pitches, a curveball and a changeup and all that. That's great, okay? But when you have a 3,000 RPM slider and a 100-mile-an-hour fastball with RPMs in the 2,600 range, then make him a reliever and make him a 2-pitch pitcher that occasionally drops in a changeup. But 95% of everything he throws is either a slider or a fastball, and play the percentages. And the reason why you do that is because those pitches are good enough to beat hitters in the zone. And then by not having 5 pitches, by only having 2 pitches, that's going to increase the execution level, which it's always been about execution with Ben Kasparius. So make him a fastball slider, make him execute those 2 pitches, and then occasionally throw in a curveball and a changeup behind that. That's literally exactly what I've been begging them to do with Bobby Miller, okay? Make him throw the 2-seam and the cutter And then until he masters those two with the execution, he does not throw anything else until he proves that he can execute those two pitches consistently over and over and over. So that's why I think Ben Kasperius would be better suited for the bullpen. Not that he doesn't have 5 good pitches, but I think he needs to have an execution focus, and by making him a fastball slider pitcher, that I think improves his execution. That was way too long. I hope that made sense.
Yep. No, I think Ben Kasperius is going to have a really good season this upcoming year with being able to focus a little bit more exclusively out of relief. I think that's going to really help him. I think we're forgetting just how good he was during the first couple months of the season, just how dominant he was able to be, and especially he was able to focus with that 3,000 RPM slider and what he's able to do, especially focusing on that, being able to make that a main part of his piece, I think is going to be really good. When it comes to Robleski, I think it's probably true what you had stated with the regiment nature of Justin Robleski, that he probably profiles better as a starter and at least would be best as a starter at the major league level. Here's the reality of the situation for the Los Angeles Dodgers is I don't see a long-term path necessarily for Justin Robleski as a starter in this organization, because I don't see him cracking and being the part of the top 6 for the Los Angeles Dodgers full-time. And if he can't be part of the top 6, he has to have some flexibility with some options for this Dodgers team. And the bad news for the Los Angeles Dodgers is there's just one of those left, which means that if you want Justin Robleski to be a Los Angeles Dodger, which I think there is great reason to want Justin Robleski to be part of the Dodgers organization, I don't know if it can be as a starter full time. It can be a little bit more as a piggyback type of starter.
There you go. That's what I was going to say.
It could be a little bit more of that
5-inning reliever. Call it what you want, right?
You can be very creative with the role that he has, but if you're talking about a very traditional type of starter, when you have a Snell, a Yamamoto, an Ohtani, a Glasnow as your top 4, when you have an Emmett Sheehan as part of the mix, when you have the upside of Roki Sasaki, when you have a Gavin Stone and River Ryan being able to come to the mix, it creates insane amount of competition to be able to, that could and likely is going to crowd out somebody like Robleski from the starting pitching rotation, to where I think the Dodgers still like the upside with Justin Robleski as part of the mix, to where they want him to be a Los Angeles Dodger. So they're going to keep him around in the mix, be creative, as opposed to doing what potentially could be better for Justin Robleski and making him a full-time starter on another organization. I still think I think the flexibility that Robo provides allows him to do a lot of different things for the Dodgers, and they want him to be a little bit more of can do a lot of different things for the Dodgers.
So here's what my last statement on this. So you have your 6 starters, right, including Shohei Ohtani. Then you have all the other guys like Robo and Gavin Stone, River Ryan, Emmett. Well, no, Emmett's actually in the rotation. You have all these other guys that Bobby Miller, Ben Kasperius, whoever it may be. You have all the other guys. Here's what I'm trying to say about Robleski. Robleski is at the top of the list. End of discussion, period, full stop. Of anybody that's not one of the 4 guys that doesn't have minor league options in the pen. Who are those guys, Austin?
Those guys are Edwin Diaz, Tanner Scott, Blake Trinan, and Alex Vesia.
And who are your 6 starters?
The 6 starters are Glasnow, Ohtani, Sasaki, Sheehan, Snell, Yamamoto, in alphabetical order.
Beyond those guys, the next guy, full stop, hands down, is Justin Robleski. That's where I'm at.
Totally fair. And I think the only argument that you potentially could have is with some of the success that maybe like a Jack Dreyer had as part of a reliever, but Justin Robleski firmly cemented himself, I believe, as being a dog, as being a competitor, being somebody that the organization can trust, because they trusted him in both Game 6 and Game 7 of the World Series when the Dodgers were on the verge of potentially being eliminated.
Mm-hmm. When you talk to guys in the organization that have been around baseball their whole life, and you can just kind of see them light up a little bit, and then what you really see is you can see them go, man, we always knew he was good. Now he's done it at the World Series level. Wow, we're super excited to see how that's going to vault him to the next level. Okay, so I shouldn't be drinking this, and I actually whenever I started having my heart problems, I stopped drinking anything dark, okay, and just went straight to water. But you know what? Like when I started dipping snuff in high school, and I stopped dipping like 10 years ago, okay? I don't drink alcohol, okay? And so then I stopped drinking, doing any kind of caffeine or dark pop. And I was like, you know what, man? I got to draw the line somewhere. Hey, would y'all stop, please? Vivian, would you please stop? My Dodgers dogs are having a fit. I said, I got to draw the line somewhere. So damn it, I'm going to drink dark pop, whether it's good for me or not. If it kills me, I don't care. I got to do something that's bad for me in my life. So I say that to say, Austin, I've always been a Diet Coke guy, okay? And when you first start drinking Diet Coke, it tastes like medicine. It's horrible. It's like coffee. It's an acquired taste. And then once you get used to it, it's like it's awesome. But I will say this, Pepsi Zero Sugar, hands down, and Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar is the best diet pop, which, hey, again, nobody should be drinking pop. I get it, or soda, whatever you want to call it. Pepsi Zero is absolutely awesome. I mean, it's awesome. You ever had it?
I've not had Pepsi Zero Sugar, and I'm glad that you said pop because that is the correct version of how you should go ahead and say that.
Absolutely.
Coming from the Midwest type of situation.
Or Coke. It's funny. You go, hey, I want a Coke, and they go, what kind? Pepsi? What? Do you guys do that in Michigan? Coke stands for everything in Oklahoma.
No, it's not like
Coke
that.
Coke doesn't mean you're actually getting a Coke. That means you're getting a pop.
No, it legit. We just say pop all the time. No, I'm still very much part of the not zero sugar type of stuff with the pop that I am able to drink. So
Pepsi Zero.
No, I've not tried that before.
Okay, so let's get in. We got about 10 minutes left here, Austin. Let's get into some of the position players on the non-roster invitees, okay? Couple of catchers. This is GLP. This is Locke right here. Actually, let me turn on the virtual camera so you, Austin, you can get a good look at what we have on the screen here. I can always tell because I'm like, why is he not responding? Oh, yeah, because he can't see it. Okay, so this is Griffin Lockwood Powell, Locke, GLP, whatever you want to call him. A good catcher, did not have a very good year offensively last year. Can play some first base. Break down the statistics of GLP. All-time RBI leader in the history of Central Michigan, by the way.
Yep. The Central Michigan over there. Griffin Lockwood Powell, great player within this organization. Spent the past couple of years in Tulsa. It's been right around league average offensively, exactly league average for him last year with 100 WRC plus. Walked a ton last year. Close to a 16% walk percentage for him. Strikeout percentage about 20%. Wasn't a ton of power, which that was the biggest thing that was noticeable about Locke last year. As well, some of the peripherals were really good. The power really disappeared for him. Just 5 home runs on the season. Locke, really curious to see how he's able to do. Been part of the system for a long time. Starting to get a little bit older, entering into his age 28 season. So I'm curious to be able to see what GLP is able to do this upcoming year. But he has a chance potentially to be part of the mix, potentially fighting for a spot for Oklahoma City at some point, and at least has stayed around league average offensively. If he can get back into some of that power, perhaps you could see a little bit more upside with GLP, Griffin Lockwood Powell.
We have a 1999 super chat from Matt Kramer. Thank you so much, Matt. That is just absolutely awesome. Where are the Dodgers if Ohtani blows out his arm and can't pitch or bat? What say you? I still say the Dodgers, if he can't pitch, the Dodgers are still massively and heavily the favorite to win the World Series. If he can't pitch or hit, I still say the Dodgers win over 100 games.
Yeah, and first off, thank you,
That's
Matt.
how good this roster is. Look at the pitching. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, first off, thank you, Matt, for the donation. It really means a lot to us here. Dodger Stock's part of the Dodgers League. Now we're going to try to help us be able to grow with what we're able to do. With Ohtani, the really good thing about him pitching side is he's a bonus pitcher. He's the 14th pitcher. He's extra from what all other organizations are able to do. Now, if Ohtani went down with some type of injury to where he couldn't pitch, that would disrupt some of the options or some of the rest patterns that some of the pitchers are a little bit more accustomed to, because it's a lot more difficult to have a 6-man rotation when you only have 13 pitchers on your roster, as opposed to having essentially 14 pitchers on your roster like Ohtani is able to provide. There's going to be a disruption to some of the pitching pattern that the Dodgers are going to have to redraw if Ohtani is part of the case. But the talent still is there for the pitching side. I would see Ohtani as being a little bit more bonus on the pitching. And I think that would mean some other opportunities for Stone or River Ryan to be able to step up. On the offensive side, there would be definitely some concern, especially when you lose an MVP type of talent with Shohei Ohtani. But with the Dodgers offseason and bringing in somebody like a Kyle Tucker is taking over the Michael Conforto type of role, which means you are expecting some sort of potential jump, or at least a little bit more of an impact with some of the offensive additions that were added to this roster, to where I think this offense, man, it would be awful if something happened to Shohei Ohtani. I think the offense still would be good enough, and I think it's still deep enough to where they can go out there and be highly, highly competitive of a roster. To where
they'll be favored. They won't be competitive. They'll be favored.
Yes, and that's where I was going to say is they wouldn't just be competitive. They would be favored to be able to go out and win every game that they have. Shohei Ohtani plays a massive role, and that's not undermining the impact that he's able to have. But I still think the Dodgers are going to be highly competitive. Again, Matt, I can't thank you enough for the super chat with what you're able to provide. And thank you for the support they continue to have here for Dodgers Daily.
And we've got about 5 minutes before I got to leave and go watch my Oklahoma State Cowboys beat that KU ass, right, in Gallagher, a historic Gallagher Ibe Arena. The rowdiest arena in the country. Okay, hopefully. It actually hasn't been, but it was back in its heyday. And it will be again. I firmly believe that. So, Austin, we're going to go to our second catcher that's a non-roster invitee.
Yep.
Okay. Nelson Quiros, and everybody's going to go, who in the hell is Nelson Quiros? Totally get it. Okay. So I'm going to put up a hit of his on the board here in a minute. What type of hit would you predict it's going to be?
If I had to guess, I'm going to guess he's a left-handed hitter. I'm going to guess it's not going to go to pull side. I'm going to guess it's going to go opposite field, unless you're talking about
this was not rehearsed. This was not rehearsed. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's the way that Nelson Quiros goes out and hits.
Watch this one right here. Watch this one. Two strikes. Didn't even lift his leg.
Yes,
love it. Got on top of that high pitch.
Yeah, and this was when the non-roster invite list got put out. This was one of the players that I looked at, and I was so grateful that the organization decided to give him a non-roster invite, because he absolutely earned a non-roster invite this upcoming year. Last year, during the 2025 season, again, this is coming off of a 2024 season, played 54 games in Great Lakes, 86 WRC plus. Last year, batted .333 with a .393 on base percentage and a .441 slug,
good.
A .139 WRC plus.
Very quietly, sorry, Austin, but very quietly, he was maybe the best offensive player in the system. It's certainly one of them. Very quietly.
Very, very quietly, completely under the radar, went and had a phenomenal season for this organization. 139 WRC plus. Not a ton of power for Nelson Quiros. Going to be a little bit more of that base hits type of hitter.
Like that,
He's going to slap the ball around, but he also knows who he is. He doesn't strike out at all. Last year, in 25 games at the AA level, a 6% strikeout percentage for him.
Unbelievable.
He's going to put the ball in play. Really grateful that the organization decided to reward him. It was the right decision.
I was shocked.
I know, especially because there's a lot of competition at the catching position, and you're going to see Nelson Quiros in spring training. And while I don't think he's going to, I don't think he's going to be.
Hey, watch this. Watch Zach Earhart slide into home. This is like just a rando game in the middle of the afternoon. Watch this. I love that guy. He's so freaking competitive, man.
That's awesome. But while I don't think Quiros is fighting for a spot at the MLB roster, catchers obviously fully cemented with Smith and with Rushing, and even something happened to them. Only 25 games at the AA level. Glad the organization is giving him a chance, because there is power in there, and Nelson Quiros also swings the ball really hard. It swings the bat really hard, and it's fun. It's super fun to be able to watch. Q, what a guy.
Okay, this is Chucky Robinson, catcher there. Okay, not a great player. He's depth. End of discussion. He's depth. I mean, he's depth behind depth. But here's Chucky Robinson, okay? So the Dodgers love to have these veteran guys, and you don't get them to have them as much anymore, because they lowered the amount of guys that you can have in the minor leagues in 2021. So these AAA rosters don't have as many veterans as they used to on them. But the Dodgers love to have Chris Oakey. Remember him last year?
Oh, yeah.
This is what Chucky Robinson is going to be this next year, the Chris Oakey. So I witnessed Chucky Robinson myself with my own eyes back whenever people were going, oh my gosh, Bobby Miller's figured it out in the bullpen. Okay. You remember his like first 5 or 6 bullpen outings and everybody's going, Bobby Miller's figured it out. Well, you want to know one of the huge reasons why?
Why is that?
Because Chucky Robinson was his personal catcher. And I'm telling you, after every pitch, after every inning in the dugout, Chucky Robinson was Crash Davis with Nuke LaLoosh. That's exactly what you probably don't. You're probably too young to even know the Bull Durham, the reference there. Are you too young for that, Austin?
I'm too young for that. Yep.
Oh my gosh, greatest movie of all time. But Chucky Robinson was huge for Bobby Miller. So if the Dodgers brought him back for anything more than just be the personal catcher for Bobby Miller, I'm cool with that. He's a great dude. He has major league experience. He doesn't mind being depth in the system. He's always smiling. He is a veteran presence with a bunch of young guys that you're going to have on a AAA roster. I just love the fact that the Dodgers rewarded Chucky Robinson and they saw the value in a veteran that can help these young guys. I really like that move.
Yeah, and that insight into some of the relation that he's able to have with some of the other players, really insightful. He's going to be fighting for organizational catcher number 3 within the system. Ben Rortvedt got claimed by the New York Mets. The attempt to be able to sneak him through waivers, to sneak him to Oklahoma City, didn't work. New York Mets have him as part of their system, and so now the Dodgers during spring training are looking for the organizational catcher number 3. Robinson is going to be part of that mix. Also, watch out, and this is one of the players that I mentioned on the show on Monday, Sebi Zavala, not originally part of the Dodgers organization, is somebody to be able to watch out for, being able to fight for organizational catcher spot number 3. But one of the things that Chucky Robinson has over Zavala is he has some of the relationships with some of the players within the system. And I think, and some of that familiarity with some of the pitchers, especially if he's able to help some of these pitchers be able to take that next step, that could be the thing that the organization looks for and rewards.
He's going to be another coach on the field for the Dodgers. So he's going to know what the Dodgers want. And that's huge at the minor league level.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's 6:59. Oklahoma State plays at 8 o'clock. It's about a 1-hour trek for me over to Stillwater. So that means it is time for me. It's actually 7:59 where you're at, and it's actually 4:59 on the West Coast. What a tremendous crowd. Austin, we put this together way early, and we had just wonderful, wonderful support. You Dodgers dogs, give yourselves a standing ovation for the entire offseason. What an incredible job these Dodgers dogs have done supporting this channel. Can't thank them enough, Austin. Final thoughts.
Yeah, we got, one more show of the offseason, maybe a Friday night in the big town, being able to do a show. We'll do
Friday
one more
offseason.
It'll be one more offseason show for you guys before Dodgers spring training games are actually going to start. Dodgers spring training starts on Saturday. That means that's going to be where the competition is going to be able to play out on the field. Super excited about spring training starting up. I will be flying out there. I think on Monday is when I'm flying out to Arizona for a couple days, staying with a buddy of mine. Spring training is right around the corner. Dodgers baseball in the 2026 season is right around the corner.
Absolutely. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. I was actually in the middle of trying to write a response there. I'll get to that as soon as we log off. Okay, Austin, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, Case.
Okay, man. As always, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. The support has been just absolutely overwhelming. What an awesome crowd you all are. So thank you again, all of you wonderful Dodgers dogs out there. And as always, just a reminder, it's a great day to be a Dodger.